face masks return to the classroom for secondary school pupils in England. The move to tackle a surge in Omicron cases after the Christmas break to keep schools open, but the policy's been criticised.
We don't have to wear masks in offices. So why are we requiring children to wear them all day in classrooms?
Also on the programme, senior Conservatives turn up the heat on the Prime Minister over soaring energy bills. The aftermath of the Colorado fires, which destroyed hundreds of homes. And history made off the pitch in the stands at Stamford Bridge.
This is ITV News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good evening. The new school term will mean new rules for secondary school pupils in England. When they return to classes, they'll have to wear face masks in lessons to reduce the spread of COVID. But the policy is coming for criticism by the chair of the Education Select Committee, who's raised his concerns about the impact on children's mental health. Well, the new advice came as just over 137,000 new COVID cases were recorded in England and Wales. Our political correspondent, Romilly Weeks, has this report.
At this vaccination centre in Bexley, some teenagers were spending the last weekend of the holidays getting another jab in their arms.
Second dose.
They're also having to get their heads round returning to mask wearing in lessons.
It makes things a lot more difficult in the classroom, but at the cost of safety, I think that's worth it.
Because I feel like there's more complaints if we're not allowed back at school, like if we have to learn at home.
I'm in favour of it because I put safety over everything else.
Unlike Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales, pupils in secondary schools in England haven't had to wear masks all day in school since May. The government is promising it's only temporary.
Face coverings is very much a short-term measure, simply to the 26th of January when it will be reviewed, because we recognise that it is not something that many children will want to wear. It recognises the priority of ensuring face-to-face education.
With the UK recording its highest ever infection levels, the government is concerned about the impact of large numbers of teachers having to isolate. However, there is resistance from amongst its own side.
So you have to balance those minimal risks for children of COVID against, I think, are significant risks to children's well-being and mental health. And I just asked this key question. We don't have to wear masks in offices. So why are we requiring children to wear them all day in classrooms?
It's not just schools bracing for high absence levels. The NHS, care homes and transport companies are straining to cope. Some scientists believe the answer is to follow the US and reduce the length of isolation for those with COVID.
So would you be an advocate of shortening the isolation period again?
Oh, absolutely. I think we should reduce the isolation period to at most 5 days. And I think even if people are LFD positive after that, they should be able to return to work. I think that's what the few studies that have actually looked at the risk have found.
The government is saying there's no need for other restrictions yet, but with the NHS heading into its busiest week and no sector immune from staff shortages, it's still going to be a very challenging start to the year.
So, Romilly, the government's clearly concerned about the number of people who have to be off sick or isolating when they start going back to work.
Absolutely. Public sector bosses are being told to prepare emergency contingency plans for having 25% of staff off sick. We're nowhere near that figure yet, but if you've had to take a train or even go to hospital recently, you will have noticed that existing staff shortages are already starting to bite. Contingency planning in schools has meant asking ex-teachers to be ready to step in and delaying Ofsted inspections. In hospitals and care homes, which are already critically short-staffed, it is much more challenging, and hospitals are having to make difficult decisions like closing beds or transferring very sick patients between hospitals. There is going to be renewed pressure for the government to look again at reducing the isolation period for those with COVID. But for now, the UK Health Security Agency is taking a different view to its US advisors and saying it is firmly against that.
All right, for now, Romilly, thank you. Well, the Prime Minister is under pressure tonight from senior Conservative MPs to step in and bring down surging energy bills. They want Boris Johnson to scrap VAT and suspend green levies to help consumers through the cost of living crisis. Neil Connery reports.
Restaurant owner Ibrahim Dogas says his energy bills have more than doubled at a time when COVID has seen his turnover fall by more than 85%.
Now energy bills are almost a breaking point for our trade because the turnover is still very low and the cost of running a business is constantly on rise.
Now a group of Conservative MPs and peers are calling on the Prime Minister to tackle rising energy prices.
Energy bills really are a major impact on people's cost of living, and for struggling families at a very difficult time during COVID, it's going to have a huge impact on their lives if the bills go up, as has been suggested.
Household customers on the latest price cap are on average paying up to just under £1,300 a year on energy. The group of Tory MPs want to lower energy bills by scrapping VAT, which accounts for 5% of energy bills. And they want to remove environmental levies, which account for 15% of dual fuel bills. Together, it's estimated this would save these customers more than £250.
When we get to April and the price cap goes up, and it's going to go up a lot, we're going to see probably around 6 million households in fuel poverty. That's spending about 10% of their income just to be able to keep warm. We haven't seen those levels since the mid-1990s. That's unavoidable unless government steps in now.
The government says there are a range of measures to help those who feel the squeeze and that the economy is bouncing back. But with tax rises and inflation taking their toll in 2022, it seems there's no quick escape from the effects of the rising cost of living. Neil Connery, ITV News.
A major fire has caused severe damage to South Africa's national parliament in Cape Town. Huge flames were seen coming out of the roof. An entire floor has been gutted and the roof has collapsed, according to Cape Town's fire service. Well, South African authorities said the fire has now been partially contained and the cause is still being investigated. And all of the people who were trapped on a cable car at a ski resort in Albuquerque, New Mexico, have been rescued. 21 people had been stuck there since New Year's Eve, enduring freezing temperatures. Also in the US, investigators are still trying to find out what caused a massive fire in the state of Colorado, which scorched neighbourhoods to the ground and destroyed nearly 1,000 homes. 3 people are feared dead. Robert Moore reports from the United States.
First, there were devastating wildfires. And now a thick blanket of snow that has extinguished the threat, but made retrieving possessions and rebuilding even more challenging. This has been the most harrowing possible start to the new year for those living in communities north of Denver in Colorado, where Christmas festivities turn from a time of joy to one of ruin. William Klein returned to see the destruction of his home for the first time. Doubling over in dismay at the sight of a community razed to the ground.
I can buy new books, I can buy new furniture, but it's really hard to build back a community. I'm sad for my kids that they're going to lose all this. I'm sad for everybody else's kids.
He said he was confident of the culprit following a sustained drought, fire, and then this belated snowfall.
You know, I didn't think it would happen to me, but climate change could happen to you.
The wildfires had broken out 3 days ago, fueled by parched conditions and gusting winds of over 100 miles per hour. Hundreds of thousands had fled for their lives amid these chaotic scenes. The blanket of snow arrived just days too late. And now residents must start the new year pondering whether to rebuild or relocate. Robert Moore, ITV News, in the United States.
On to football, and history was made at Stamford Bridge today, but more for what happened in the stands rather than on the pitch. The Chelsea ground became the first English top-flight stadium to host standing fans in almost 30 years after a ban following the Hillsborough disaster. And there was plenty of action for them to watch too, with 4 goals between Chelsea and visitors Liverpool in the first half alone. Here's Chris Scudder.
After decades of waiting, a victory for the fans. 33 years on from football's darkest day, when 96 Liverpool fans died in the Hillsborough disaster, standing was back in English football's top division. 28 years after it was banned in the wake of the Taylor report. Not that those in the official seating areas at Stamford Bridge were sitting down anyway. On the field, it was Chelsea's players who didn't have a leg to stand on.
Another mistake here, and Mane's been short of goals, gets one.
And Liverpool's travelling support in seats and safe standing were all on their feet. Those on their seats were out of them again soon afterwards, thanks to Mo Salah, 2-0.
Acceleration, brilliant finish. Back at the Bridge.
But such was the feast of football, it was hard to sit down at all. 2-1, spectacular.
Goes by the direct route. Like Kelleher. From Mateo Kovacic.
And before Liverpool knew what hit them, they were all square at 2-2. 2-2, and it was only half-time. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
And we end this evening's programme with a tribute to our friend and ITV News colleague Gary Burgess, who has died of cancer at the age of 46. Well, Gary passed away in his sleep at a hospice in Jersey yesterday.
It's 24 minutes past 8. This is the Wave Breakfast Show, Blackpool's biggest breakfast show.
His career spanned almost 3 decades, beginning in Blackpool at Radio Wave. He then moved into television and spent the last decade working with our colleagues at ITV Channel. Well, Gary always wanted to make a difference and campaigned tirelessly to raise awareness about the illness, ME, and money for cancer charities. Despite his terminal cancer diagnosis, he worked until the final few months before his death. He leaves behind a husband, Alan, who today thanked everyone who had cared for Gary and said his husband had done a lot of good. And a final message released after his death, Gary wrote, "It is time for me to hand over my microphone and keyboard for others to do the talking about me. So let my final words simply be thank you. Every person in my life has, in their own way, helped me live my best life. That'll do." And that is all from us for now. I'll be back with the late news at 10:15. Until then, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.